Hey, are you interested in seeing what the economic forecast is? Well, we are going to go over some of the report that we got from Lawrence Yun, who is the chief economist with National Association of Realtors. I'm joined today by Matt Edwards, associate at Spyglass Realty. And before we get started, there's a couple things that we're going to put some information in the chat here. We've got our 35 top tips for selling your home, which you can download on our site, and I'll put that in the chat in just a second. And then also a link to the blog for a full report. This is just going to be a real small synopsis of what we went over at the economic forecast a couple weeks ago. So before we get anything, Matt, you saw a report from about the tax reform. Do you want to go over that?
Yeah, so basically the big news of the day is the GOP's new tax plan. And so just briefly wanted to touch on how that affects, the mortgage interest deduction. So the proposal is, and it's just a proposal, because currently right now you can deduct the interest on your mortgage up to $1 million a year. And that's going to be cut in half to $500,000. So you'd only be able to deduct that interest up to $500,000. So that is one change that could affect you. So we'll see how it shakes out. It's got a long way to go, and there's lots of other, items in there that they proposed.
Well, just one thing about that, they went over that in the economic forecast, and what Lawrence was saying is it's not that big of a change, and it will help some families, but what it does is it puts an advantage towards renters. In other words, if you're trying to move to a city and, one of the advantages of buying a home is the homestead exemption, and you're over that certain income bracket, well, then you might just say, screw it, let's just rent this 7,000 square foot home, or not $7,000 a month home, rather than paying, whatever the mortgage rate is, because you're not getting that deduction. So,
right. And it still all could shake out because they proposed, lower tax brackets depending on how much money you make. So it could easily offset that deduction for you. Still a long way to play out, but we're going to follow it and keep you guys up to date.
And you had one more thing you were going to go over, which is another report, correct?
Yes. So the National Association of Realtors just released a study basically saying buyers are snatching up homes at the fastest pace in 30 years. So we've got 42% of buyers paid at least listing price for their homes. And that's the highest percentage since 2007. And then you couple that with home ownership is up to 63.9%. So up over last year, which was 63.5%. So we've got increased home ownership and an increase in the pace of purchasing. So, you couple that with, still, especially here in the Austin area, new construction starts. It's only going to continue to drive housing prices up.
Yeah, and what we're going to go into today is that we have a slow period, and I'll get into that in just a second. But getting back to the economic forecast with Lawrence Yun, overall we still have a shortage of inventory in Austin and across the U.S. And a lot of that has to do, he believes, with the Dodd-Frank regulations that came out some time ago. What that has to do is that they put back in 2004 to 2007, most of the home builders out there were what he considered to be mom and pop shops, right? And Dodd-Frank put serious restrictions on banks for lending to these mom and pop shops. So now what we have are primarily big companies that are building, and that has stifled new construction. New construction is directly correlated to inventory. So whether it be Austin or the rest of the nation, the fact that we're not building as much as we used to is going to completely continue to be a problem with inventory. One of the things that the Trump administration says is they're going to take a look at Dodd-Frank and take some of the parts. If this would be one part of Dodd-Frank that would certainly be the benefit of the economy as this inventory crisis grows around the U.S. For the report for Austin home sales, it still looks good. Sales are up 3.1% over last year. Median price is up 3%, and we still have 3 months worth of inventory. So what's funny is, we always recommend not.
Yeah, I got a question here. So, the fall / early winter is always a slow time here in Austin, and we're still going strong. What do you see that, when spring comes around, February, March, April, the real strong selling season?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that as far as driving up, home prices?
Yeah, so we always recommend don't sell towards the end of the year unless you have to, or if you're going to sell in a smaller home and buy a bigger home, because you're going to get more of a gain by getting a discount, if you will, on that big home. What we're seeing this year is a little bit slower than last year, which is a little bit slower than the year before. Looking at all the signs of the economy, I think we're going to have a good spring. I mean, there are no economic indicators that.
No, consumer confidence is through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do get this tax plan put through, whether you like it or you don't, I think it's going to do a lot for us.
Yeah.
As far as growth goes, lowering the corporate tax rate, and then changing up the structure and simplifying your income tax rate and how you tax on that.
Yeah.
Up to 90,000, I believe it's 24% you would pay versus 28% now.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong on that. I just briefly tried to get up to speed on everything this morning. So all that's changing. So we'll see how this tax plan shakes out. But other than that, consumer confidence is at an all-time high. And I think this Christmas season will tell us a lot too, compared to last year and in the year before, because even Austin had strong home sales years, but overall Christmas sales were down.
Yeah.
So it's kind of obviously there's not really a correlation there, but if Christmas sales are up this year, meaning consumer confidence is higher, I think definitely going into the spring it's going to lead to some strong demand.
Yeah. So that leads you to the question: why is the market slow right now? You want to take a stab at that?
With the
besides the seasonality.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, so I was in an economic forecast yesterday with David Tandy, very smart CEO of Fidelity National Title, and we're going to have an interview with him in the next couple months. And what he thought is that it may be because, well, first of all, there was a slump when the election happened and President Trump came in because they didn't know we still don't know what he's going to do, but. I think it also has kind of like this four horsemen of the apocalypse thing, right? It's like, shit is going crazy everywhere, right? I mean, right. You got North Korea, you got New York on Monday, there's a lot, the Russians and the Chinese and just all that stuff. But if that starts to stabilize, and I think it will, and I think, with all these economic indicators, and if there's not a shock to the system, and all signs are pointing that there's not going to be, because I kind of think that Trump may be starting to come to his senses just a little bit, and that we're going to see a good spring. I think.
And we're still a few months off from the announcement, but for those who have been keeping up, Ryan and I probably talked about this when we were talking every 3 days about it. Amazon's going to build another headquarters, so HQ2, and every report that I've seen shows Austin being one of the top 3 cities that it's looking at, which makes sense considering they have Whole Foods here. Bezos wants to go big into food. They're slowly hiring people in Austin, and then they have the distribution center in San Marcos. And so if they did pick Austin, they're looking at upwards of taking up or building 8 million square feet of commercial with 50,000 employees.
Yeah.
Plus, you got to think all the ancillary companies that'll come relocate or open up offices to be close to that office here. So if Amazon did announce that, which they said they're going to announce it after the first of the year, that'd be really interesting to see how that shakes out and what the time frame of that project would be. So we'll continue to keep you up to date on that.
Yeah, Austin looks good. We're 1-2, but I had again talking with David Tandy yesterday, and he had a presentation. One of the things that he thinks that's might be a detractor from Austin is that we simply might not have enough unemployed people here. Unemployment has been down in Austin for years over years. We finally got it up a little bit. I don't have my notes, but I think we went up to like 4%. And we've been hovering around 3, and that creates a market where you have kind of the Google, Facebook, corporate espionage employees.
Speaking of Facebook, so they just signed a 10,000 square foot lease on one of the new construction high rises down right next to the Seaham District.
Oh wow!
So I know they already have an office here. I don't know how big it is, but they did sign a long-term 10,000 square foot lease to be the anchor commercial tenant, and the name of the building escapes me, but so yeah, they're making a permanent home 2 blocks from Google.
Wow.
Because Google's new office just opened there on 2nd Street, and it doesn't matter. They're down there.
Yeah, so regardless of what happens to Amazon, the economy is looking really good in Austin. It's going to be looking good for the next couple of years. Even if something bad happens in the nation, we're set to do much better than anyone else. The other thing I wanted to talk about was that he went over the report was millennials. Okay, so when surveyed, people would say, when are millennials going to buy? Well, they don't really. They want to buy, and they have plans to buy, but they're not buying. Why is that not happening? Well, the main contributor is that student debt is through the roof right now, and a lot of millennials are still living with their parents. But as millennials are starting to enter their late 20s and early 30s, that's going to change, and it's only a matter of time. And when that happens, we're again going to have another inventory crisis. So we really need to get a hold on this, regulations for banks to start loaning to commercial
for mom and pop builders.
For mom and pop builders, thank you.
Right.
So,
and especially here in the city of Austin, and probably make it easier for them to build.
Yeah.
Instead of taking 6-9 months for a project and all the permits and all that, I know they're working on the code next deal. I don't know how that's going to speed up new construction versus just changing some of the zoning on current lots.
Yeah. Well, we still don't have a city manager here, so the jury's still out for that. That's about it. What we have. Do you have anything else that you want to go over?
No.
So one thing I want to tell you guys again in the chat, I put a link for the 35 top tips for selling your home in 2017. Well, that will be updated pretty soon. But all the information is still relevant. If you, there's also a link to our blog that I was to the economic forecast where you can see the full report, the graphs, and if you want to sign up for our newsletter, put your email in the chat or send us a direct message, and we'll get you signed up. And of course, if you need any help buying or selling, both myself and Matt are here to help you. We've got, I believe, 14 other agents with us, and we're happy to help you.
And if you've got a topic that you'd like us to look at and talk about, leave a comment, and we'll talk about it next week.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one.
Thanks.